Hello and welcome to episode 13 of Not to Talk About, the Notts County podcast. A little bit more of a positive episode hopefully today, only slightly possibly. But before we get into all that, how are you?
Yeah, I'm obviously a lot happy to come on and at least talk about a point being added to the board since we last recorded. But other than that, mate, I'm decent. What about yourself?
Yeah, mate, I'm good. As always, I enjoy recording these. I really enjoy them, and obviously, like you say, like you mentioned, we've got a little bit more positivity to talk about. I don't know if we can get producer Charlie to roll the tapes, but last week I did predict a 2-2 draw. I said Accrington 2, Notts 2, and I said in that episode that if you go back and listen to it, I said that it's an optimistic shout. Um, but it came true, and it possibly could have been even better. Um, Obviously, we're going to talk about it all. I guess we've got to start with the big man up front, um, Jatta getting a goal and an assist. First of all, what did you make of the game on the whole? But also, what did you make of his performance on his first start? You know, what an impact he's had on his first ever start for the club.
Yeah, look, obviously to begin with the game, I thought it was definitely a game that was there for the taking for us. I mean, no disrespect to Accrington, but I mean, I think even any of their supporters would agree with me if they were watching today. Like, they're not the best team in the division. They were definitely there for the taking. I felt, especially going 1-0 up so early, you have the opportunity then to dictate the game. Obviously, we go 1-0 up. Jim O'Brien, who again was excellent in my eyes yesterday. And then obviously, look, with us, if you put a cross into the box, sometimes it's going to stick. It definitely alarms us. It adds a little panic to our back line, and it did yesterday. And we've conceded again from another cross. And look, yeah, obviously, then it brings you on to Jatta, his goal. Obviously, you got the assist for Jim as well, but Jatta's goal, I mean, a typical poacher's finish, really. Um, yeah, I think yesterday, obviously, minus some of the negatives that we'll probably get onto, Jatta was definitely one of the positives. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I think everyone was a bit worried at first because obviously his first couple of cameos for the club weren't the best, and I think yesterday you just showed what he was about. I think any time you get a big, strong, quick striker in this division, they're always going to give you some form of different option. I think yesterday he showed that, and his goal. I mean, obviously we have Maka, he's a good poacher, but sometimes you need these chances to fall to other players on the pitch, and Shatter showed that he can capitalise on loose balls in the 6-yard box, which has obviously been you would say, to be fair, probably a problem for us in recent weeks. The goals have started to dry up, and when you have someone who's started his first 45 minutes for the club and he's got a goal and an assist, it's looking good for us. But yeah, overall I thought Shatter was good, but again his hard work was obviously undone by obviously the handball and the penalty that led to 2-2. And yeah, I probably gave the fairest assessment possible without getting too emotional.
No, definitely, it's definitely difficult not to get too emotional. And but I watched the game back today, and because I couldn't watch the game live on Saturday, and watching it back obviously the day after, you do get a different perspective from it. And I thought we actually played all right first half. Thought we were a better team, and I think Jack was a big part of that. There was actually a really good moment where Bostock played one over the top through to him. Okay, it didn't result in anything too meaningful, but it was a really nice ball from Bostock, and it's good to see him back in the team in an area where we've looked pretty light in midfield. And there was another chance where as well Jatta got the ball. I think it was a cross from Maka actually, weirdly into his feet, and he kind of turned the defender, spun him, got a shot away. So plenty of positives. He looks quite confident. He's always working hard. He also adds that diagonal ball from Slocum that we used to play to Didsey, who I believe is still injured, although obviously we don't know for sure. But the diagonal ball to Jatta, he can, because he's such a big forward, he can rise up and win those headers. So definitely a different outlet for us, I think you would say. Aidan Baldwin was back in as well. Another, obviously, I think the back line, we're in agreement, always looks better with him in the team. But one man I wanted to mention, especially in the first half and towards the start of the second, Sam Austin. It was everywhere, I thought. Another performance where he's played in yet another position. I thought he was really, really good. He was really direct. He worked really hard. And obviously he got I guess you could call it an assist for Jatta's goal. Obviously, I think it was his shot that was saved. So, what did you make of Sam Austin? Because I thought that he was quietly putting together. I think especially under the new management, I think he's been one of the key players under the new management team.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Sam because I don't think it's any secret that I'm probably one of his biggest fans. I always like to sing his praises, but I think one of the biggest praises you can give him is the fact that every player should look at him as the example of attitude towards a football club. I think there's some players, without speculating or mentioning names in this team, that get a lot more minutes, than Sam would casually and normally for the club. And the reality of it all is, I mean, Sam plays every single cameo you see from him with a positive attitude. I've never seen the guy sulk in his life. He's not one to score goals and cup his ears at his own supporters. So I mean, you got to respect him in that manner. But not only that, I just think yesterday he was the one of the players where you look at it and you can understand that he's trying to play for a club, trying to play for the management team. And to be fair, a lot of them did yesterday. Obviously, you can't. It's obviously hard for us at the minute to get 11 players out there and have 11 good performances. Well, that's understandable. We're on the form we're in for a reason. But if there's one man you can look at in this team and who has the right attitude to play for a football club, and to be fair, it's not even just now. I mean, last season he was brilliant. He had the same attitude. Obviously, Luke Williams mentioned it a lot in interviews about Sam's attitude. And even now, I mean, like I said, I don't think he's got the minutes that he's warranted this season, personally. But every time he's on the pitch, you can never say he don't give you any less than 100%. He's always playing with the right attitude. He's always trying to make things happen. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned him because if you didn't, I was going to. So, no, honestly, man, I think he's brilliant.
No, yeah, I thought he had a really good game. I thought he was excellent. And like you say, he always gives 100%, which is all you can ask for, isn't it? I think from any player, really. You mentioned him or referenced him there, but Dan Crowley was dropped before the game. I guess a little bit surprising, but I don't think too many people were surprised. So it's kind of one of those where, on the face of it, it might look a surprising decision, but I think considering what's happened in recent weeks, maybe people weren't as bothered by him being dropped as I thought they would be. From a game point of view, from watching it again the first half this morning, I thought that we looked better probably defensively without him, but the ball stuck a little bit less. Like we weren't as in control in the middle, especially. But then we probably did get more defensive work rate with a midfield three of Sam Austin and Bostock and O'Brien, and then obviously the outlet of Jatta up top. So I guess Crowley was the man that was sacrificed for that. What did you make of that decision? A bold call, some would say, because obviously he's been playing well. I know there's obviously mentions that I think he might be ill or what have you, but obviously I'm not sure. There's all sorts of noise online, but what did you make of that decision? Because ultimately, I think it's one that was kind of a big call in a way.
When I first looked at the team, I didn't even notice he weren't in it. It was until like 10 minutes after it was pointed out to me that he was benched. And then when I found out, it weren't something that I went, wow, like that's a surprise because it hasn't been, like you talk about attitudes towards the football club, and obviously we spoke about it there with Sam. If you could add Sam's attitude into any player currently at the minute, you'd add it straight into Dan Crowley, and it's not harsh to say. I mean, and for me, like the one thing hopefully we'll get onto the manager's post-match interview at the end. But obviously, I watched it when I got home last night, and there was a few things that I didn't agree with. And obviously, one of them was that he said that Crowley was outstanding when he came on because I think I mean, it's not harsh to say, but he obviously you touched on it there. He's good on the ball and he carries it well, but he didn't really have much of an impact yesterday. So unless me and Stuart Maynard have got different, definitions of the word outstanding, I'm not too sure where that comment came from. And look, Dan, he started the season brilliantly. There's no doubt about it. But I mean, it's very clear that there's split opinions on him at the minute, and it all stemmed from what he did against Sutton. And Yeah, look, I mean, ever since then, I just don't know about. I just don't know what like his attitude is towards football club. I guess it doesn't help when you've obviously you've split the opinions on you as a footballer. But obviously, if he was ill yesterday, then that's obviously the reason why he was dropped. But then again, you just never. I'm not speculating anything again, but you obviously just never know if that's the actual reason because it weren't obviously a visible illness. Obviously, it wouldn't. He's not going to just pull up on the side of the pitch and throw up and get back on in the game, is he? You know what I mean? But yeah, look, I mean, was it right to drop him? Maybe. Hopefully, it will give him a polite kick up the backside to play better. Especially when, if for me, I wouldn't be dropping Sam Austin on Tuesday to bring Crowley back in. So hopefully he works a bit harder for it this time.
Do you think that night against Sutton for Dan Crowley could be a defining moment for his time as a Notts County footballer? Because obviously, again, you don't want to use that word speculating, but when he joined the club, you heard about all the, he'd been a talent at previous clubs, but it never quite worked out at a lot of them for one reason or another, and a lot of the time it was to do with off the field stuff. And I know that incident was on the field, but it wasn't related to the actual kicking of a ball. It was an action he took. So, do you think that could be the defining moment? Because it's very difficult with any fan base, never mind one as passionate and as loyal as ours, to change the opinion once it's been formed. If you get on the wrong side of a loyal fan base, it's very difficult to get them back on side. So, do you think that moment against Sutton, it could be the big moment for Dan Crowley's time at Notts County?
I think this, well, yes, is the answer to the question. I mean, I think he let himself down massively and he let the fan base down massively, the club down massively with his incident. And obviously, we don't really want to go back on it. But if you're going to, for the sake of the question, we will. I mean, you can do that. And the very, bare minimum you can do after it is apologise. And we never got a single apology. We never got anything. Two players involved in incidents on that night both apologised. He didn't. And I feel like that's why, it's kind of been forgiven and, moved on with the other two. But obviously, Crowley's still got this over his head, an apology, whether it goes against your ego or your beliefs in the footballer, of how good you think you are, what you did was wrong at the end of the day. And, an apology would have probably smoothed it all over by now. But the fact that it hasn't, anytime that he doesn't have a good performance or anytime he, it shows like some sort of bad attitude or anything. Like even now, like you go to games and you hear like, "Oh, cup your ears now, Crowley." But at the end of the day, he didn't apologise. So obviously, it's going to still be a problem if you just put out an apology, which was very much warranted. By the way, it's not just me saying like, "Oh, I thought that apology should have been given." I mean, he should have apologised. It is as simple as that. He didn't. So maybe that incident has defined him now. Because I mean, like you said, there it's a loyal fan base and everyone who you don't just pick Notts County for its glory. You pick it because obviously you have a love and you want to support the club. And these people don't chase glory. I mean, obviously we had a lot of it last season, but this season obviously, I mean, maybe not so much of. But this is the football club that people they put their weeks around and they proper cherished a badge, and you disrespected it and you didn't apologise. So I think it's a future discussion, I guess, whether it's going to define his time here. But I mean, if you're not going to apologise for it, you've at least got to play well, and he hasn't particularly been doing that recently either. So who knows, mate? Who knows?
One man that did apologise, or at least clarified what happened on that night, was Carl Cameron, and obviously the game defining moment of this game ultimately was involving him, crossed into the box and a handball, which I think looks even worse in slow motion. I know a lot of things look worse in slow motion, but it really obviously everyone's seen that video online of the slow mo version of it, and his arm's quite outstretched, and obviously it's always difficult to take moments in isolation. But first of all, what did you make of the handball? And also, what do you make of the fact that we've conceded 14 penalties this season, which is more than any other team? I think it's 6 more than any other team. It's a massive amount, and considering as well, we didn't concede a penalty until 9 games in, so we've conceded 14 in about 27 or something games. Like it's something crazy like that. Like it's mental. It's nearly one every other game. I think it's 29 games. 14 and 29. It's like one every other game, pretty much. What do you make of both of those, of this handball and also the other penalties?
Look, I'm gonna defend Cammy here because I think, before, again, which we'll get on to it, but before he was moved position for whatever reason in a winning position in the game, yeah, I thought he had a decent game. I thought him and Baldwin especially looked good. They were defending the box very well, as you'd hope they would in a situation against a team that want to bombard you with them. And then look, I think the fact that it obviously happened to him again, he starts the game at centre half and gets moved out to left wing back. Just really goes to show that you don't really have to. I mean, I respect the chat. Obviously, if you think something's going to benefit you more in the long run in the game and get you a better result, then fair enough. But it didn't, and this really, I think it all ultimately cost us, because I hope we get onto this part as well, because Jodi's obviously gone off early again, which I didn't agree with, and that led to obviously Cameron going back onto the left, and obviously Warner filling in that space. And realistically, I said this earlier in the comments on Twitter. I mean, if Jodi's out wide there, yes, it probably does come into the box, but you'd bank on Cameron or Baldwin to head it clear, as they did pretty much all afternoon prior to the penalty incident. And yeah, look, I mean, I like I said, I respect the bravery, if you like, to try and change it to trying to secure the win, but ultimately the change was costly in the end, because I mean, it's no secret that to play centre back and then to play left wing back takes a lot of know-how, and your positional awareness has to be obviously a lot better but when you're going to switch from the two positions in the game. And I feel like Cammy was probably exposed massively at left wing back yesterday. And that's not me saying he was terrible there. It was probably more so, like I mentioned it, you go from playing in the middle to out wide. It is a risk to take, and the risk didn't pay off. And again, it's unfortunate, really, because it always seems to be either Cameron or Baldwin that these things happen to, and it's always them that get the flag for it online. But again, we're in a situation now where we're not doing well. When these incidents happen, you are going to get blamed for it, because that obviously was the difference between 3 points and one yesterday. And whether it's right or wrong, you are going to get a bit of stick for it online, because again, it was costly. So it's tough luck in a minute. Hopefully we'll obviously change it soon, but until then, this is what we have to talk about, I guess.
No, yeah, definitely, and I'm going to defend him as well. I think I understand criticism for players, but I've seen some people questioning his commitment and his willingness for the badge. I think that I think there's probably few players who want to win more than him, especially with this football club. I think he absolutely loves it. You can tell he's got passion and desire, and I think you can't fault his effort. And like you said, he's playing in a different position, and that's kind of I know he's been put there by the manager, but he has to as well. He's put his hand up, and well, literally, but he's put his hand up and to be counted, like to go and be in another position. He's put himself out there, if you like, and kind of played in the two positions in one game. And I know, as I say, I know the manager's put him there, so he's got no choice. But at the same time, it takes character to do that. And I think that it's not. And again, I'm not using this as an excuse. And everyone will know that I'm more than happy, and I think the players deserve criticism if the performance levels aren't good enough. And I think you can't use last season as an example. But in terms of last season, he was the captain that has led us to some of the best moments ever. And I think to people question his commitment and things like that, I think it's harsh. I think it's harsh. Yeah, of course you can take moments in isolation, and of course in that moment it's not great if you watch it. It isn't the prettiest moment, because you do wonder why his hand's so far stretched out. But like you say, he's kind of out of position. One thing it does call into question two things though. Firstly, the crosses. I wanted to get your take on that. on how poor we are at stopping crosses. He's not necessarily even dealing with crosses. We seem so poor at stopping them in the first place. Teams get the ball into the box so often against us. Accrington just went 2v1 a lot of the time against our wing back, isolated them 2v1, and of course they're going to get a cross in if you've got an overload. And the other thing is the bench. We mentioned the changes, but if you look at that bench, the performance level I thought was quite good first half, and we were okay. But we get tired because we've got a thin squad, and the same team is playing all the minutes. So of course they're going to get tired. The games are coming thick and fast. And when you look at a bench that's got 2 goalkeepers on, I know it's because Chickson apparently was taken ill before the game, but even so, you're looking at a bench 2 goalkeepers. We've not got many options to change things. So I guess a two-part question there: crosses and substitutions.
Well, for the crosses, I mean, it's no secret now we play with 2 wingers as your wing backs, and although obviously, Aaron less than Jodi, but still both contribute a lot going forward. They're not defenders. That's no secret. Naturally they're going to come with disadvantages playing in that position, and one of them is very clear, and that's the inability to stop crosses. But again, you don't coach this thing. This is something you can't coach overnight. You can't just wake up tomorrow morning and boom, you've got 2 fullbacks like Aaron and Jodi. You can do everything. But ultimately, knowing that is obviously something that we're prone to. Realistically, we have a lot of hype in. If you take Macari out for a second, you just place Warner in. You've got 3 centre halves that. I know they're not slacking in the height department, and they should win a lot more aerial duels than they lose. And then say if you lose some and they get a header on goal, you'd back Sam to probably save 9 out of 10 or whoever it is in goal at the weekend. But again, it can't be a surprise to anyone that when you play with 2 natural wingers at your wing backs, we are going to concede a lot of crosses because it's obviously not the easiest thing in the world. Naturally, them 2 players are the players that you want getting down and putting the crosses into the box. In a different situation in their careers, they would be the guy trying to put it in the box, and they'll have fullbacks trying to stop them. So it was always going to be difficult. It was always going to be a challenge, and it would be definitely something I'd change next season. I'd be definitely looking to recruit 2 natural wing backs, not. And that's not me saying, get rid of Aaron, get rid of Jodi. Absolutely not. But definitely I wouldn't get rid of them for a start. That would be silly. But to improve us next season, you've got to nullify your weaknesses, and that to start with is obviously defending crosses. And I was a massive fan of Gordon at Crowley. I think that's someone we should be definitely looking at. To be fair, I think it's Forster on the other side as well. I thought he was a good player, and look, who knows what's going to happen. I thought O'Brien yesterday for Accrington, prime example, another good, fullback, wingback that was stopping a lot of crosses for them. So look, there's options out there, and these are players that probably won't say no to and move to Notts County. So if there's anything that the recruitment team and the owners need to worry about in the summer is spending money, just please spend it right and get these problems sorted, and then we won't be talking about a season capitulation, if you like, moving on to next season. And again, with your subs, I guess that kind of ties into the recruitment. And this is, I'm worried. Obviously, I feel like we're obviously, again, no speculation involved, but I don't think it takes a genius to work out. This is probably going to be the last season you see Macca in a Notts shirt. Am I confident that we have the right people in charge of our recruitment to spend that money wisely? Absolutely not. They've got a lot right, but this season they got a lot wrong. No doubt about that, and it is very much reflected on the bench. I'm not gonna draw out or dig out any players because I don't think that's fair. It's not their fault. We signed them players, whether it was the right move or not. We signed them, so they have to take full responsibility for that. And I've no doubt these players on the bench are good players, and there was clearly a reason that they signed them, but it just hasn't worked here, and it's a reason why now we struggle so much with impacts off the bench. Although we have very limited impacts from the bench, Stuart Maynard doesn't really help himself with the substitutions. I thought, again, yesterday, some of them were just absolutely baffling. Bostock you know, I thought I had a good game. I always thought if you took him off the pitch, you'd probably lose the control, and then he took him off. Brought Charlie Colkett on, to be fair, had the chance to win it at the end, didn't. But in terms of his first 2 cameos for the club, this one was definitely a better one. And then, I mean, the Jodi Jones substitution, and this is something I wanted to go on to. I mean, what on earth? Look, I mean, without trying to rant, I mean, you've got literally, and I mean literally, arguably, if not the best attacker in the division in terms of, you know, your end product, your stats. I mean, the stats don't lie. You don't get 21 assists at this point of the season, being a bad footballer, having a bad season. And for me, I'm getting towards the point where it's making me a bit fed up with how we're using Jodi, because realistically, the only time he ever seems to see out a full game at the minute is when he's being used as an experiment player, and I've used that term a lot with him, and he's not the player you should be experimenting with. But at the end of the day, you know, against Wimbledon at home, he was almost playing as a centre mid, and then he's played right wing, left wing, and, you know, you've got this man, and I'm not saying this lightly because it deserves a lot of recognition. Like, his impact on this football club has been absolutely outstanding this season, right? It's been absolutely incredible, and without him, we'd be a lot worse off, a lot worse off. He teared up this division playing left wing back for 90 minutes with a lot of support on his side. And if you're worried about him being marked out of the game, you don't move him from left wing back. You move someone out there with him to support him. And that's where I feel like, I mean, I'm not saying I know more than anyone, but I just don't think it takes a genius to work out that Jodi's best position is left wing back, so just stop moving him. And again, yesterday maybe it was a bit more understandable because you're trying to see the game out, but then boom, we're back at 2-2 and we need a goal to win it. And you look at the people you took off, you know, your Jatta, your Jodis and your Bostock, and you mentioned it at the start of the episode, and Bostock's through balls to Jatta, who got in behind. You know, that's the sort of ball you needed in that incident, and that sort of running behind to create an opening. And then Jodi, again, a player who can make something out of nothing. So I'm not trying to be critical, but the subs at the minute is just very costly. I mean, Tuesday, you take Tuesday for example as well. I mean, you make all these different changes, and we ultimately we concede another winning position, and on different occasions, you know, with better man management, better game management, you probably come away with 6 points this week. But the fact we've only came from 1, it says a lot about what's happening at the minute, I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely, and a lot of what you said there are 100%. Well, all of what you said, you know, spot on. And yeah, in terms of Gordon at Crawley, I think he's an East Midlands lad. I think so. That would make a lot of sense to have a look at him. I think he was really impressive, and there's plenty of good wing backs, out and out wing backs available. I don't know if they're available, but they're out there in the division. There's plenty of them. We've seen a lot of them this season, and um, maybe they aren't as good at going forward as Jodi, but obviously he's been unbelievable this season. He hasn't been called up for Malta, and this is where I'm going to speculate a little bit. Maybe there is something going on. I'm not saying like going on personally, but maybe, you know, maybe there's obviously a reason why he hasn't gone for the Malta. I can't imagine that the Maltese national team won't call him up. He's not exactly in bad form, is he? You know, like I said, 21 goals, 21 assists and 5 goals this season. You know, it's been an unbelievable year for him, and I don't think that not having a little bad run is going to stop him being called up. So maybe there's something more than meets the eye. I don't know. Again, it's pure speculation from me there. But I just wanted to touch on the penalties, because that was the defining moment. And I've gone back and watched every penalty decision that's gone against us, so that everyone else hasn't got to put themselves through that. And here are the stats from it. So obviously we conceded 14 penalties. Cameron, Bostock and Crowley have all given away 3 penalties each. One of Crowley's was with Nemain. They kind of fouled him together, but against Wimbledon, I think. But yeah, there's those three have got 3 each. Jodi Jones has got 2, so he's there, and then you've got Ashby Hammond, Stone, and Rawlinson are all on 1. Lots of similar. If you watch them all, which I don't encourage anyone to, it's not a very fun exercise. Don't know why I put myself through it, but it's a lot of the similar things. A lot of crosses, a lot of balls over the top, and a lot of the time it's not actually the stuff in the penalty area that's actually what's caused it. And that sounds crazy, but like, it's the fact that we've put ourselves in a bad position generally, like a ball put over the top, and then we have to make a challenge because the guy's going clean through on goal or whatever. So yeah, it's the same with the penalties, and I think that possibly explains it. But before we move on to the game on Tuesday, I know you want to say a bit on the post match, so I'll just the floor is yours, mate, to talk about that the post match interview.
Oh, look, yeah, I mean, again, I'm really hopeful this is obviously a successful managerial appointment, but the more weeks that go on, I don't know, I just start to lose a little bit of faith, if you like. And I mean, to begin with the obviously the interview, I mean, to come out and say Accrington are in good form. I mean, I'm not sure what app has told you that they're in good form or who's told you they're in good form, but either your eyes have deceived you or you've been lied to, because they're not in good form at all. I mean, they're on pretty similar form to us, and again, I've touched on this in previous episodes, and it's something I firmly believe in. You know, it was an opportunity for us to end our rot against someone who was in very similar form to us, and we failed to do so. And I mean, I don't want, again, you know, you hate to use the term speculation, but I don't think there's any speculation involved when you listen to these interviews, and it's always just trying to like find an excuse, which I wish wasn't the case. But I mean, to excuse your inability to see out a 2-1 lead against someone who isn't in form by branding it as a team you played was in form was very confusing for me. I mean, I sound like I'm trying to dig Stuart out here. I'm not. I generally want him to do well. But please, like, the worst thing you can do is just not be honest. I mean, there's two things I didn't agree with: the form and the Crowley performance. I thought Accrington were in poor form, and I didn't think Crowley was effective. So to brand Accrington again as in good form and Crowley as outstanding was something I didn't agree with, obviously. And yeah, look, I mean, you have to move on now, and again, you have to move on to Bradford. You have to prepare in the right way, and again, a team that have been turned over at the weekend 5-1 at home, the place that you're going to play them, there'll be a lot of anxiety around their fan base because naturally you get beat 5-1 and you're always worried about your next game because they need a response and we need a win. So, I mean, there's two teams that need a win, but let's not go into this one saying that Bradford are in good form, because again, they're not a team they're probably marginally better than Accrington in terms of form, but I mean, they've just been beaten 5-1 at home, and you know, again, although we're on terrible form, our squad on paper is probably still arguably one of the best in the division if you consider the names and the players we have in there. And yeah, look, I just really hope again that this can be turned around and fixed and solved. But week on week, I feel more and more of the faith being just sucked away from me. And listening to uninspiring interviews such as that is probably a massive factor in it, because when you have a manager that's saying things that don't add up to what you just watched for 90 minutes is obviously gonna lead to that. And I don't think it's just me who felt that. I think if you ask anyone who watched the game or was there yesterday, would probably agree with me. And yeah, I mean, it's tough to take in a minute, but again, the situation is we are not doing too well as a football club on and off the pitch, and it needs to change. And one thing I will say is, before we move on to the Bradford, is, I mean, the support yesterday, the amount of people that turned out for the game was fantastic. I mean, to almost have a full terrace and a full seating area, you know, with, again, I hate to say it, but one win in 2024, absolutely remarkable. And this is what I mean about the fan base. And it's passionate, it's loyal, they're going to be there week in, week out, whether you're winning, losing, or drawing. And that's why I touched on it at the start, and I'll touch on it again. You know, if you want anyone on this pitch for you at the minute, it's Sam Austin, because he's been here a season and a half, and he's clearly understood what it means to play for a club straight away, and he does it every single time he's on the pitch. His attitude is the way he just puts himself onto the pitch, and he represents the club and the shirt. You know, it's a fan's dream, and I think, I mean, yesterday, them supporters definitely went home happy with his performance, but maybe not so happy with other people's performances, and that's not just players, that's management team, and it needs to change because this fan base deserves better. And I keep saying every single week, and I mean it. So it is what it is, mate.
No, definitely. I want Sam Austin to start for sure. Really hope he does. And something else you mentioned there is always the form, and I'm glad you did mention that because Bradford were an informed team. I don't think you can call them that now. Before they played their last two, before they played that, in the previous 6 games, they kept 5 clean sheets, and drawn. They won 4 and drew 1 in that run. They won 4 and drew 2. Sorry, in that run of 6 games. That included a draw with Wimbledon. They beat Wrexham at Wrexham. They beat MK Dons at home. They beat Sutton at home, obviously, who we unfortunately couldn't. Drew Doncaster, and they beat Accrington as well, who obviously we've just drawn with as well. They beat Accrington. So some really impressive results in there against teams that obviously are either near the top, Wrexham and MK Dons, or teams that we've struggled to beat ourselves. But then their last 2, which have both been at home, they lost to Forest Green, who are currently 23rd in the table, and they lost 5-1 to Mansfield, obviously, as well, who obviously we all know we can get turned over by them at home. We don't want to talk about that too much, but that is 7 goals conceded in 2 at home. That's more than they conceded in that. Conceded 1 in the previous 6 before that. So a huge drop off overnight for them. Going to be really interesting as well because obviously we played them at home and Graham Alexander was just new to them at the time, and it was a tale of 2 halves, that one. We battered them first half and then they kind of battered us second half, really, didn't they? So I guess I just want to get your take on how you think it's going to go. Obviously, hopefully the game does go ahead this time. That'd be nice, especially not called off outside the ground. But obviously this will be the 3rd game in a row they've played at home. Lost their last 2 at home. Is there some hope that we can get something there?
I think there's definitely hope. I mean, if there's anyone who always keeps the faith and tries to push the faith around, it's probably me. I mean, I just think in times like this, it's not worth dropping faith. But look, you obviously touched on it there. They're in good form, and maybe they're not so much now. But I think our last 10 games, it really don't matter who you're against in terms of form. I mean, the biggest thing for us now is performances and results, especially when you consider our situation. I mean, rightfully so. There's a lot of doubters on Stuart Maynard's name, and whether you think that's right or wrong, it is the reality of it, and it's deserved. And I think, look, obviously, this isn't a team in the top 5. This isn't a team away from home that people have gone to and not picked up many points. As you've touched on there, they've lost their 2 last games at home. It's an opportunity for us. It's an opportunity to take 3 points into Saturday, where obviously Saturday you go back to your home soils, surrounded by, hopefully what would be 11,000, but who knows, this result on Tuesday will definitely play a big part in that. But yeah, like I said, it doesn't really matter who we play against now. It's all about, being convinced that this is the right appointment, convinced that this is the right management team to turn the team around, and, no disrespect to Bradford City, they'll probably see it in the same way as us. They need a win, and they've got us coming on Tuesday night, and we need a win, and we've got them away on Tuesday night. And look, it's just another game. That's the best way I can say it. It's just another game where all we need is 3 points, and that's where hopefully you can start your run. But I don't want 3 points where it's not convincing, or 3 points where we've won 1-0, but we've had 4 or 5 wrong offside calls against Bradford that will probably lead to them winning 5-1. I want a convincing performance, convincing result. Do I think we're going to get that? I mean, if I'm going to be honest with you, no. Because like I said, the faith's being sucked away slowly. And even if we did get a result, I don't think it changes much. It definitely don't paper over any cracks. It's not just something, you can't just tear around and say, where's your Maynard doubts now? Because at the end of the day, I mean, it doesn't change the fact that would only be 2 wins in 12. It doesn't change the fact that we've had to wait, painful performances and painful results until we got this win. But it's, again, then you stop that rot, and then you move on, and hopefully you start picking up more and more points. But I mean, it's obviously not the worst fixture to have on a Tuesday night. Again, they're going to be well backed, so I mean, whether they deserve it or not is obviously a different story, but they are going to be well backed again. Unsurprisingly, again, because of the fan base here is absolutely incredible. And let's just see what happens. But it's definitely not an opponent we should be fearing. They definitely won't be fearing us, and we should definitely not be fearing them. And it's just another game.
I like that. I like that mantra, and that's the same attitude I have in terms of it doesn't change anything, and not to go on about it, but the whole must-win thing. But that's kind of the way I look at it in terms of every game is at the minute until the end of the season for me is a game where it's just another game. Now the season for me is probably over. I mean, obviously, if we win every game to the end of the season, we probably end up in the playoffs just because of how close it is. But that isn't going to happen. So I think you've got to try and take the rough with the smooth at the minute and just be. It's easy for me to say. I'm not telling people what to think, but for me, it's how I'm feeling. Is how I'm feeling like kind of season's gone for me. And like you say, just another game. Look, they are pretty good at what we struggle against. They get crossed into the box. They've got Andy Cook, who didn't start at the weekend, but he came on and scored. Absolute handful of a striker, and I think he's the kind of forward that we really struggle against. So that's a worry. I'm not going to lie, it's definitely a worry. Obviously, the fact that they were in good form before, also a worry and a concern. But, I have a... It depends what kind of knots turns up, and by that I mean if we can sustain the level even that we showed in the first half against Accrington. Don't get it wrong, it wasn't like we played brilliantly in the first half, but I thought we did okay. I thought we did certainly better than we did in the second, and it just seems to be a little bit like we do drop off a little bit too much at the minute. And I guess it did happen last time we played them, so let's hope that we can sustain the performance levels. I'm going to ask you for a score prediction if you can. If you could give me your thoughts on how you see this one going in terms of a score prediction.
Look, honestly, really hopeful for a win. I mean, I don't go into any game with any other different attitude. I just think it all depends on it all depends on how the first half goes, which is obviously cliche. Of course it does. Results aren't won in either half, but a good first half normally sets you up in good stead to go on and have a good enough second to win you a game of football. But ultimately, I think decisions are key. I mean, the subs are definitely key. And if we get it right, we should be walking away with a win. But if we get it wrong, we won't be doing that. And you know what? For a change, I'm going to say the rot is going to stop and we're going to walk away as 2-0 winners. Brave, I know. And to be honest, I'll probably be coming back on here the day after on the Wednesday afternoon and saying, what a donut, I'm silly. But I just feel like, I say all the time, these runs have to stop eventually. And this club, you never know what's next for it, and that's why I think we're just going to surprise everyone, keep a clean sheet, and come away 2-0 winners. And I'll throw my goal scorer in there. I think Jatta's going to get 2 if he starts and plays, and hopefully he don't get taken off like he did in the 55th minute. But I just believe in him, mate, because what I saw from yesterday is just a player that's going to keep on getting better, and he's going to keep chipping in with goals and contributions, and hopefully he can do it then. And if it is 2-0 to us on Tuesday night and Jatta gets both, I'll be making sure that is mentioned as soon as I can on Wednesday's episode. But how about you? How do you see it going?
Yeah, you know what? Obviously, I did that at the start, and I'm not going to say my prediction's going to be right because I got the last one right. It was a complete guess, really. I even said it in the last one. It was a bit of an optimistic one. But I saw enough of us from us on Saturday to be positive. I'm not saying it was a complete performance, but I saw enough from the attacking players to think that they're starting to gel a little bit more, starting to get, there's a couple of good performances. Sam Austin looked lively. Jatta looked, obviously, Jatta looked good. Jodi Jones got that ball into the box from the left wing back position, and hopefully he can do that again if he stays there. And obviously, he turned his man and got the ball in, and then Jatta laid it off. It was a goal. Langstaff is due a goal. I mean, he's not scored for a while now, and He's not the kind of player that goes too long without a goal. So hopefully he can put that right. So I think I saw enough to be positive. I think that there's a general a little bit positivity coming out of that performance. Like I say, I know it wasn't perfect, but I'm not even saying we deserve to win. I think I just think that there was enough to think that maybe we're looking a little bit better than we were at least. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for Notts. Again, I feel the same as you. I feel like I'm going to, even though I say that, I don't fully believe it. I'm going to come on here and be talking about how silly we look, but I don't know. I've just got a good feeling at the minute, but let's hope that is the case. Just wanted to say before we wrap up, thank you so much for all the support again. Obviously, I know this one is quite a quick turnaround, but that's thanks to producer Charlie. Obviously, shout out to him. And shout out to all you guys that are watching. He obviously told us to let you know that we can see that a lot of you are watching that aren't subscribed. So if you could subscribe, that would be absolutely perfect for us. It really helps us. It goes a long, long way. But all the support and the comments and the likes and the views and people that are talking to us at games is brilliant. And yeah, I've got to say thank you so much for that. And I think I'll pass on to you to wrap up.
Yeah, look, see, you've nailed well, you hit the nail on the head, if you like, with what you've just said there. And yeah, look, I mean, I stood next to a guy yesterday, Atkinson, who left me by saying, "Oh, he's enjoying the podcast, he's loving it, so clearly we're doing something right." And if that is you, thank you. Obviously, unfortunately, I don't know your name, otherwise I would love to address you by that. But I very much enjoyed our conversation through the second half yesterday, so I appreciate that. And again, look, I appreciate obviously all the support. It is massive for us. We're going to obviously keep going and going. This podcast ain't going anywhere. There's plans for it. There's definitely plans, and we're working on it. Obviously, you can't just click your fingers and have everything you want. You have to work for it, and we have. And we've got a very good foundation now. We've got 326 subscribers at the minute. That's 326 people that are going to be notified when an episode goes out. Hopefully we can keep increasing that. And if you need any, if you're one of them fans who are and ahhing about going to Bradford, one thing I will say is just buy your ticket. You know how good it can be. Obviously, we know how bad it can be, but an extra couple hundred voices will probably go a long way for the players on the night. And look, I doubt you need me to try and convince you, because, I mean, like I said, all the time, its fan base is great, it's loyal, and it's going to try and be there every week if it can. So just keep on supporting them and keep on supporting our podcast, and hopefully we'll be back on Wednesday to talk to you about a win. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Please keep subscribing. And come on, you pies.